30 years of the best sports talk in Middle Tennessee, featuring Tennessee Radio Hall of Famer George Plaster, Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame coach Watson Brown, and young guns Billy Derrick and Michael Cindric. And now, here's your host, George Plaster.
Hello again, everybody. Happy New Year to each and every one of you. And here's hoping that 2023 is something really special for you. You know, one of the things I've always loved about sports is the fact that it is, as I call it, the toy department of life. You can see all this stuff behind me in our new little set. These are all toy department of life kind of stuff. There's a picture back there of Nissan Stadium, an old relic back there of Fulton County Stadium where Hank Aaron hit his 715th homer. But the fact of the matter is that the toy department of life went out the window last night for several hours. And most of you, I think, know what I'm talking about. You may have never heard this young man's name before last night, but our thoughts and prayers need to be going out big time for Buffalo Bills defensive back Damar Hamlin. The latest on him, and let me just say up front, we'll spend a lot of the 3 o'clock hour on this story and give you a perspective on it that you're not going to get anywhere else, because our man Watson Brown lived one of these kind of moments that he'll never forget. And when you think about it, you won't either, just as you're not going to forget what you saw last night in Cincinnati. With that in mind, let's bring Coach Watson Brown to our microphones from the plateau. Watson, Happy New Year to you.
George, same to you. And we start another one, and we're going to get into it, but I'll just quickly say that you're watching a game last night, and all of a sudden it goes from a game to a human being and life and death. And that doesn't happen in our lifetimes very often. And millions of people are sitting here watching this, George. It was unbelievable. And I know we're going to get into it further. I just hope and pray for the family and the young man and all the close friends that are involved in this. It's one thing for us to watch it. It's another when you're a part of it. And I just hope and pray that he comes through this and can live a normal life after this.
The truth of it is, the only chance he had was where it happened, in a National Football League stadium, with all that emergency medical stuff and the procedures and getting him to that Cincinnati trauma center as quick as they did. Watson, if that had not been the case, this story would already be over.
Yeah, and I learned a lot more about the NFL. They have a trauma center for every game in every city, and people that are on call during that time just for that game. And so they do more than we know sometimes, but there's no doubt that the professionals have him alive today. The professionals have him alive today, because it seemed like it was 24 hours, and it was still a pretty long time. They had to keep him alive and get him to the hospital.
Yeah. Billy, happy 2023 to you as well.
You too, George. And man, I told you before we got on today, it's going to be hard talking about really anything else, because of what happened last night. But, sports is supposed to be entertainment, supposed to be a distraction from reality. But, we saw reality last night, and that's a human body. So, George, we're going to dive into it. But certainly excited about the new year.
Yep. And excited that you have Turner Field in the background back there. That's holy territory for you.
I also feel like I have the most zoomed in face right now. I need to work on that, George.
Do your best. Okay, let's do what we do every day, and that is our daily Titans update. Terry McCormick from Main Street Media joining us to talk. Terry, this subject, what went on last night, has gotten reaction all over the NFL, including from Titans coach Mike Vrabel.
Yeah, Vrabel addressed it and said that he addressed this situation with the entire team. And, one of the most, I guess, memorable things he said was that sometimes this game that you love so much and gives you so much can also take so much away. And that's certainly the case here with Damar Hamlin and, the situation there with the Buffalo Bills. The most, I guess, the closest connection that there was of the Titans to this young man is outside linebacker Rashad Weaver, who was a college teammate of his at the University of Pittsburgh. And they were in the same recruiting class, the same draft class. Weaver answered a couple of questions about it today, but then he broke down emotionally. And, we ended the interview and, allowed him time to compose himself. He said that he and Damar Hamlin were good friends and that they had, communicated since they got into the NFL on around about a weekly basis. So very, very tough for Rashad Weaver.
Terry, no big surprise. First of all, that the Titans, game for all the marbles with Jacksonville is a 7:15 primetime Saturday night. We figured it probably would be. And even less of a surprise that Josh Dobbs will be the starter. Anything other than that, and I think the roof would have come off.
Yeah, I think they're going with the right move here, going with Josh Dobbs. With Ryan Tannehill unavailable, Dobbs gives them the best chance to go down there and figure out a way to win. Now, he's still a work in progress. He's still learning some of the nuances of the offense. He's still learning some of the tendencies of his receivers and playmakers. One thing that he'll have this week that he didn't have last week, and he said he's looking forward to that, is he'll have Derrick Henry to hand off to. So that should make a big difference for him as well. But Josh Dobbs said that, he's staying on an even keel, preparing for this game, one day at a time, and he's looking forward to this opportunity to show what he can do.
Terry, where do you think they're able to add, just because, okay, you got a little more than a week from the Dallas game to Jacksonville. How much more do you think they're able to open up the playbook for him?
Well, I think they'll put things in that are game plan specific that they know Josh Dobbs understands. I think, this week in practice will give him a chance to kind of work some things with his receivers to kind of, get exactly how much, where these guys run their routes and how they like things. There were a couple balls in the Dallas game where he put it in a catchable place, but the receivers weren't able to come down with it. He kind of gave them the fastball. And so, learning how each receiver likes to run a route, how each receiver arrives at the spot they're supposed to be at, and learning, exactly the speed and the timing of working with those receivers probably is going to be one of the biggest helps that he's going to have this week. And I think, they'll try to get him up to speed and understanding as much of the playbook as they can, but they won't put in a whole lot of extra wrinkles, I wouldn't think. I think they will probably just say, let's get Josh as comfortable with as much as we can and go with it that way.
Terry, in your opinion, and right now this is simply opinion, holding out the people that they were able to hold out against Dallas, who do you think they are going to get back Saturday night that they have not had?
Well, I think there's, they're going to get Jeffrey Simmons and Danico Autry back, apparently, according to what Mike Vrabel was talking like today. Derrick Henry's going to be available. There's a chance they'll get Amani Hooker and Christian Fulton back to help shore up that secondary. So I think that when you're talking about, what's available and what's not available in terms of what they have available, probably going to be the strongest roster they've been able to field in 3 or 4 or 5 weeks.
Okay. I've asked what I need to ask. Anything you want to lay out there on us?
Well, just want to say that, like everybody else, I'm praying for, Damar Hamlin, that he makes a full recovery. I think, everybody that is a fan of football, you hated to see something like this happen. And just, going forward, the NFL is probably going to have to, it's not been a good week for them. You think the Nick Foles, the convulsions on the field, the Tua Tagovailoa concussion that was not discovered until Monday or Tuesday. It's been a rough week for the NFL. And, it's just something that you hope and pray, these players can stay as safe as possible, George.
Living proof that it's not two-hand touch. Terry McCormick from Main Street Media joining us on the show. Terry, thanks as always.
Thanks, guys.
Okay.
That is your Daily Titans update. George, fresh sponsor here. Hit After Hit, the official shirt provider of the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night. Call them at 615-399-2287. You can also find them online at hitafterhitonline.com. Watson, I wonder who told me to throw the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night in there.
I can't imagine.
I didn't think it was you.
Happy New Year to both of you.
Roaring start here.
Yes.
George.
We have Billy Derrick, yours truly in the middle, and then the Grinch who stole New Year's over there on the right.
George, on a more serious note, we're going to get into this Damar Hamlin story all day, of course, but a few notes on this. His heartbeat was restored on the field after suffering cardiac arrest during last night's game in Cincinnati. According to the Bills, he's currently sedated and listed in critical condition, and the game will not be resumed this week, according to the NFL, and they haven't made a decision on resuming the game at a later date, but the Week 18 schedule remains as scheduled. So there's obviously a lot to this, not only with Hamlin and his family, but that the NFL have to figure out down the road. Okay,
let me throw a couple of things out there, and this is not the important issue of the day by any stretch. But, Watson, it dawns on me that what the NFL may be doing here in the we're not thinking about it until, what I think they're hoping is that play determines that Cincinnati and Kansas City, Cincinnati and Buffalo don't need to play because the races have already been determined. I'm not convinced that's the way it's going to turn out, but that's what I think the NFL's hoping for.
I'd rather think they're hoping that they want to make sure everything's okay before they decide to put this game back on the docket and that he comes through this. And that's what I'd rather that they're waiting on, just to see where he is. And do we need to put everybody back in that atmosphere again? That's what I'm hoping, but you may be right. I don't know. I'll play the good guy on this one and say I think they're thinking more about where we go from how he comes out of this.
Here's another one that has crossed my mind. Okay, you've got this grueling 18-week, 17-game schedule. And right now you've got this game that's out here because of the strangest of circumstances. I wonder if the NFL's sitting there saying to themselves, if we've got 2 weeks between the conference championship games and the Super Bowl, push it all back a week so that if Cincinnati and Buffalo need to play, they can go ahead and play the weekend that was scheduled to be round one of the playoffs, and you just push it back a week.
They've done that before.
Sure.
They've done that on different occasions for different things that have happened. And I would think personally, that's what they would put as number one to me. And that also buys them some time to see where everything goes a little bit. You don't have to make that call today. You really don't have to make that call till the end of this coming week. Then you're going to have to tell everybody exactly what we're going to do from here. But I personally think that's the best option they got, in my personal opinion. I see no way to play that game before this weekend, and then how in the world you could possibly fit it in and be fair to either team, because they're both going to be in the playoffs. And
Right.
I don't see a way to make it fair to either team if you just don't back everything up a week.
Billy, go to that note
Yeah, there's
about his fundraising.
There's a really
stuff.
really heartwarming note. A fundraiser that he set up for kids in need of toys as of last month had raised about $2,900. It's up to nearly $5 million now in really one day, with about 130,000 people going online in that span to donate. On average, about 3 donations were being made in every second that initial 12-hour span. So I think you can think of
incredible
Bills Mafia, friends, family, sports fans everywhere, just people everywhere, because it's really not even a sports issue at this point. But I mean, what a great cause. But also, he had started this before this even happened.
You know, Watson, what it really brings out is that in the worst of times, and this is for this young guy, the worst of times, that there are some random acts of kindness that come out of these circumstances that give you hope that we're just not a bunch of heathens.
Well, and I'll take it. I agree with that 100%, and I'll take it further. I get so irritated because in my business, this is what happens. These single acts of idiocy or whatever, and it goes on, and we want to magnify all the negative things that pop up in our country. And I'm not talking about just us, but everybody. And we don't spend enough time on 99% of the good people in the United States of America. We got fantastic folks that live in this country that have come from everywhere. And last night proved it to me. I mean, you sit right there and everybody in those stands was very respectful, yes, quiet, praying, both teams on their knees praying. That's the United States of America that I know. And I just don't think we talk about that side enough, and we spend way too much time on the negative side. And the negative side, in my opinion, is about 1%. And the positive side's about 99%. I always felt that in my business. If somebody get in trouble, well, the whole team's bad. Or that's just kind of the nature of the way it would be. And that was so not true. And this, to me, really just brings out what you just said, the graciousness of the people that live in this country that will do whatever it takes to help somebody when that time comes. And that just proved it. And I promise you that thing's going to keep going up.
Amen.
There's no doubt about it. And George, we've got some more baseball news here. Of course, prayers continued for Damar Hamlin, his family, everyone involved. But the Boston Red Sox.
Hey, let me do one thing, Billy, before you go there. The story that I'm getting, not that I am some medical person by any stretch, is that we are likely to not really get any info of any magnitude about his condition. Now, if something were to happen during the show, obviously we will break in with whatever we've got. The way it sounds like to me, they have him sedated, and they will have him sedated anywhere from a 24 to a 72-hour period before kind of getting him out of that and trying to see exactly what level of brain activity there is. That's their big concern right now. And so, you know, we all want answers right now, me included, but pray and hope that that this length of time brings him out of this okay, because that would be the best New Year's Day present any of us will get for a while.
There's no doubt. That's all you can do right now. Just pray and hope that he's okay. George, like I said, it's going to be tough to really talk about much of anything else. We do have other things to get into, though. But Rafael Devers and the Red Sox have agreed to a deal, though it's not for the long-term extension that a lot of Boston fans were hoping. They announced a 1-year deal with Devers, and they avoid arbitration today. So that was one of the big notes around baseball. We've also got college basketball tonight. Mississippi State is in Knoxville to face number 8 Tennessee. That's a 6 o'clock tip-off. South Carolina is in Nashville to face Vanderbilt. Those are 2 games Tennessee and Vandy should win. Mississippi State's a solid team, but Tennessee and Vanderbilt, those may be some dampers to their seasons if they end up losing those tonight. And then you've also got the Preds for Montreal tonight, 7:00.
Yeah, 7:00 at Bridgestone. Obviously, a game they need to win. 2023 needs to be spectacular for the Preds if they're going to make a playoff run. Okay, after the break, we'll go up to Knoxville and we'll talk with Knoxville sports talk show host Tony Basilio. He will join us. We'll get into it. Let me just say I'm guilty. Can you see my hand? I'm guilty. I dogged Joe Milton. I've said he was a stiff. Maybe at times I was right. But you know what? Friday night, he stuffed it down my throat. He was really good. And we'll talk with Tony about that next. Stick around.
How am I going to get to work? My car's totaled.
Skylar, our team is making a call right now. We'll get you a rental car. Don't worry.
That's a relief.
Call us 24/7. We're here. We're going to help.
Year number 2 of the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night was awesome. And the reason is simple. I chose Hermitage Strike and Spare. They were amazing. Great food, great bowling, and a staff that's ready to go the extra mile. They have 5 family fun centers in the area to choose from. And for more info, go to strikeandspare.com or call them at 615-824-5665. Here is a New Year's resolution for 2023, and that resolution is that we are going to get Tony Basilio to the bowling night in late November. It is 11 months away, but I guess you have to be thinking at all times. Tony will join us here in just a second. I think I caught him in what is a Philadelphia Eagles jersey.
Yeah, throwback.
Yeah, I mean the old stuff, not the deep green that they wore in the old days, as opposed to sort of the green that looks like it's got a little bit of the black mixed in. Did Tony escape us?
Yeah, George, we're waiting on Tony as well as Watson. I think we caught him off guard with the.
Well, okay. While I've got a moment.
Talk about Joe Milton.
Yeah, how far did he stuff this down my throat? He was 19 of 28, 251 yards, 3 touchdowns, no INTs in the victory over Clemson. And I think Mr. Philadelphia Eagle is now with us. And so is Watson Brown. So, hello, Randall Cunningham. Happy New Year.
I got my throwback on. I got it for Christmas. There you go, man.
Okay, that thing would have been, what, 70s and 80s Vermeil? That was
88, 87, 88. Buddy Ryan. Crazy Buddy.
Yes. And to quote Buddy, there's a winner in town and you're looking at him.
Buddy Ryan had a running back his first couple of years when he got there named Ernest Jackson, and he said about Ernest, they said, Buddy, you just traded a guy that gained over 1,000 yards. And Buddy Ryan said, yeah. He said, you could have gained 1,000 yards if I'd have given you the ball 1,000 times.
Buddy was always such a heart warmer.
Yeah, just a really lovely guy.
So, okay. Now we've got on paper and on film a Joe Milton that looked better than we had ever seen him. So what does this do as far as how next season begins, and how do they classify him? Is he the starter, no questions asked going in? What do you think the designation is?
Well, their quarterbacks coach, as a prelude to the Orange Bowl, said, we are going to have an open competition in the spring. So that sounds to me like, if that's to be believed, that they're going to have an open competition in the spring. Now, Tennessee's not going to start a true freshman at quarterback because that's just not done in this league unless you absolutely have to do that. What that did, George, that game and that performance from him, is it provided some clarity to that situation and gives them at least something in the transfer portal, because they're trying to attract a difference maker at wide receiver, not a player, a difference maker. And they have their eyes on this young man who comes from Oregon, who's going to be in here on Friday for a visit. Miami's involved with him. Arkansas is involved with him. Some other folks are involved with him. Dante Thornton is his name, from Oregon. He's originally from Baltimore, but he's a spindly guy, one of those tall, rangy wide receivers that fits perfectly in this offense. Tennessee had their eyes on some other guys in the early portal activity, pre-bowl game. Those guys went elsewhere. Unless more enter the portal, right now, of the highly ranked guys, there's kind of slim pickings there for them. So it was good to get something credible on film to sell for potential recruits, really of all positions, because let's face it, in the modern game, if you don't have a quarterback, you almost don't have a chance. And so for them to have something credible to put on film, and then to beat Dabo Swinney, you cannot spell culture without C-U-L-T. To beat them in that game was all that much more sweeter for Tennessee, because Tennessee, if they're going to get back to being Tennessee, has to be able to recruit in the Carolinas, Virginia, the Northeastern corridor, a little bit in those parts on the seaboard with some credibility. And that's what that game was about for them.
Tony, I'm going to ask you one more thing, and then I'll turn it over to Watson. What do you think the coaching staff did best with Milton in the 3.5 weeks after the Vanderbilt game, where frankly he didn't play all that well, to last Friday night where he was terrific?
I think they put him in a position to be successful. And I think to me, that's the epitome of any kind of coach, you know. Can you take what you have, adjust to that situation, and be successful? And I think they came up with something and allowed him to be successful. And, you know, it's not like me to come on here and brag on Watson Brown, but I had him on Friday. And, George, it's almost like Watson was reading the script of what was going to go down Friday night. I don't know where Watson gets that, but he's got a sixth sense about him. He's got a prescience about him that's otherworldly. This is a man in touch with the stars or something.
Well, I sure can't jump to the stars. I can tell you.
Well,
the vertical left me about 50 years ago.
But you're older than some of the stars.
Thank you, George.
You're welcome. Happy New Year.
Yeah. Happy New Year back to you. Tony, the thing that we'll get into the game a little bit, but two things came out, I think, that really needed to come out. Number one, Joe, I said if he plays C+ or better, they're going to win the game. He played B to me. I think he was a B player. He can play better. He can still react a little quicker in the pocket on certain things, either take off and scramble or throw quicker. He got caught 2 or 3 times, I thought, where he got a little confused and had to go down, but at least he took care of the ball. But he made the throws that he had to make. So I don't think now they got to go to the transfer portal for a quarterback. That settled that. They've got a guy and they've got a freshman they love, so they don't have to go do that now. And if he had played poorly, they nearly had to go to the transfer portal. If they didn't, they're going to be playing with a freshman, and I don't think they wanted to go that route. So that was a big plus. And the second was the defense. The defense in the last 2 weeks was totally different. And I thought it was the best 2 weeks they had of the whole season, not just after the South Carolina debacle, which was just about as bad as a defense can possibly play. I mean, it was just poor in all phases, coaching, playing, aggression, speed of the ball. Everything was poor. And to turn it around, and they gave up yards against Clemson, but that's the style now, Tony. You keep them out of the end zone, and they're going to get some yards if they're a wide open style of offense, and keep them out of the end zone, get a turnover here, get a turnover there, give it back to your defense, your offense, which is a fast-paced, fast-scoring, and that's why Tennessee all year, you don't go by they're different. You don't go by how many plays we had compared to the other team, because they score so dang fast and hit big plays. It really gets nullified. It doesn't mean that much. So, but I think they answered those two things. They're going in with some confidence on defense, and they got to add a lot of defensive players to it. But I think they can now, when there's confidence coming back, confidence in the coach, the coordinator, confidence in each other, and Joe Milton playing well won them the game, but it also settled what we have to bring in for the spring and for next year. They just throw that out. We're not bringing in a transfer guy.
And what a luxury, again, credibility, just to have the opportunity to say, okay, this is what we have. It's settled. Look, the coaches are going to make the kid from Indianapolis feel like he's a part of this, Taven Jackson. That's why they're not naming a starter, obviously. And who knows? Maybe he goes out in the spring and knocks everybody's socks off. That could happen. I don't think it's going to happen, but it could happen. To your point, though, I was thinking about that game and what I thought the game was going to be prior to the game and what it ended up becoming. We saw nothing of the quarterback from Clemson that played against North Carolina. Didn't like same guy. Because Tennessee basically decided, and I bet if Carolina had a chance to do it over, you can't adjust though, right? Carolina was prepared for DJ, and they knew, okay, with him out there, we're gonna bottle these guys up because we can bottle these guys up because he can't throw the ball downfield. So with the Klubnik kid, you can tell he's got some talent about him, but you know what? Tennessee decided we are going to take a game plan similar to what we did with Pittsburgh out of the same league to start the year, and we're just going to heat this quarterback up. We know in our back 4 or 5, depending on what formation we're using, we can't trust those guys. We'll live with pass interference penalties. We're not going to let you complete balls over top of us. It's going to grab people. And truthfully, they had that young kid so off his heels or on his heels that if they would have turned around a few times in the secondary, they probably would have had a couple picks to go with the night they have. But the decision just to throw caution to the wind and make him play faster than he wanted to play really paid dividends for Tennessee and turned that into a pretty easy win for the Vols. In retrospect, it was a pretty easy win, which is kind of surprising to say that.
Yeah, the thing I thought going in, I'm telling you, I've been there. And I remember my first college start. Mm-hmm. And I was a backup up at Michigan and then go to North Carolina. And that was my first start. And I was a mess. Mm-hmm. And I'm a sophomore. You couldn't play. We had freshman teams, which were important. I mean, we played 5 SEC games. So you got experience in freshman ball, but it still didn't matter. My first start was against North Carolina. And that's what I thought. He came in as a backup in the North Carolina game. Mm-hmm. It's different when you're going out there as the starter for your first time. And I'm telling you, I saw it in him. He was nervous. Mm-hmm. And then when you add the pressure, and Clemson wasn't picking up the pressure. It wasn't that Tennessee was beating the pressure. There was free guys. So Clemson has not helped the kid a lick. No. In the game because there's somebody coming at him about the time he catches the ball. And honestly, it was the difference in the game. In the second half, Clemson did a better job of picking it up, but the nervousness in him was there. And he was just a half a second late or a 2-yard overthrow. He just wasn't hardly there. I think he's going to be a really good player because I'm going to tell you, Tony, he is tougher than nails now. That kid is tougher than nails. He got hit the other night and he jumped back up. Yeah. And you'd see him on the sidelines, very competitive kid, very upset he wasn't playing better than he was. The the nervousness really showed there right before the half when he takes off scrambling with no timeouts left. That's a young kid that's nervous. That I promise you, he's practiced that and practiced 1,000 times. But that's what Tennessee had as an advantage. Joe was starting for his second time, but he'd also started the year before 2 or 3 games. So I thought that was the difference in the game, and Tennessee handling the pressure. Joe did a better job of getting rid of the ball in the game. He didn't hold it as long.
Hey, Watson, if I can butt in for just a second, I was listening at the end of the first half to Clemson's radio broadcast, and their color announcer dusted Klubnik and said, this is why they haven't played him earlier. He said in practice, he does this constantly, which surprised me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, first of all,
that's not fair, Watson, is it? Yeah.
First of all, they ought to fire that guy.
God.
I mean, you don't talk about your players that way. You ought to fire the guy. I mean, you're representing Clemson. You're not an ESPN broadcaster. You're representing Clemson.
Right.
I mean, that's awful if you ask me. And this
I'm
is
just
a true
telling
freshman.
you what got said.
This is a true freshman. I'll take the bet with him. I'll bet you he turns into a great player, and that guy'll have to eat his words over many times.
Yeah, I mean, the kid's a freshman.
He's a first game start freshman.
And
True
you know
freshman, not redshirt freshman.
If you want to blame somebody, on that, we talked about this on our post-game show. Blame coaches, because here's what happened. They come out of a timeout, or they came out of a penalty and got too much time. At some point, you got to call, especially if that color commentator is correct, George, and that is what occurred, and that occurred in practice. You got to call him over to the sidelines and say, son, anything on this play, but you cannot get tackled in the field of play. We're going to coach you through this. If anything, you got to put that on a coach. You can't. Well,
and you got to throw it. Yeah, and you got to throw it in the end zone or out of bounds.
Yeah, you can't get tackled here, son. And by the way, the game is stopped. So as a coach, you have a chance to call him over to me. Now, I could be a little being hard on Dabo and his staff, but, Dabo's too busy, worried about what he's going to say during his halftime conversation with the media.
Y'all are buddies, aren't you?
Oh, I love Dabo. I trust him.
I can tell.
The other thing, Tony, I imagine we're getting close, George. Stop me.
Keep going.
His fundamentals on the deep ball, daylight and dark. I told you he was coached well. I told you he was being coached well. They fixed him.
Yeah.
You watch him, he's much stiller. His eyes were focused.
Yeah.
You realize he missed one deep ball in the whole game, and that was a scramble running sideways that he just kind of threw one away over somebody's head. He didn't miss throw on the deep ball. Everybody said, why didn't they go deep more? Clemson was playing way off of them. Clemson was backed up. I think they went deep 5 or 6 times in the game and hit 3 or 4 of them. Yeah. But Clemson was saying, you're not getting a big one. And Tennessee still did get quite a few big ones in the game.
It's impressive. And it went a lot easier than I thought it was going to go. And, one of the other adages that continue through this whole bowl season is you take the team, unless you're in a playoff, that wants to be there more. Tennessee was hungry.
Yeah, and that's all. That's any of those lower bowls.
All of them, with the exception of those playoff games. And for some extent, I think that's why TCU is kind of a dangerous opponent, guys. Somebody's telling you you're a 2-touchdown underdog. They've told you all year you're not good enough. Georgia looks kind of leaky. Their quarterback play wasn't exactly stellar. Stranger things have happened. I know people think I'm crazy, but stranger things have happened than that.
Listen, I'll guarantee you there's some people in Michigan saying they shouldn't be a 13.5-point dog.
No doubt.
That's going to be a fun title game. Tony, I want to ask you this last thing. In the next segment, we're going to put a graphic up of Tennessee's non-conference games after you're gone for 2023. They open against Virginia in Nashville. Mm-hmm. What is the school's desire? Is it to play at Nissan every couple of years? What is kind of the philosophy?
Boy, I don't know. It's really strange. I don't know. It's a great question. I think they did it for money. And we'll see what happens from there. But that's a great question, George. If you made me king, I would take these college games out of these professional stadiums and put them all back on college campuses, unless you're playing in a bowl game.
Yeah.
To me, just me, college football belongs on college campuses with college traditions, with a college vibe, with college feel. Professional games belong in professional stadiums. I wish they would stop this stuff. But, the sad thing is, and we didn't know this at the time, but Virginia's had that terrible tragedy, canceled their last 2 games.
Right.
The next time they take the field will be down in Nashville with Tennessee, and that's going to be a game that, in essence, is going to be a remembrance, going to be hard to escape that shadow, and very sad.
And I think I'm right. Is it Thursday night or Labor Day Saturday?
That game?
Yeah.
I believe.
September 2nd.
I believe it's Labor Day. Yeah. I don't think it's a Thursday.
September 2nd.
Labor Day Saturday.
Yes.
Okay. Hey, thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
This has been awesome to have you on. And thanks for all the times I text you and go, can we change the
Hey, I'm here for you. You tell me. We do basketball stuff as well. I'm here for you anytime. You tell me.
I'm gonna get you and Griff on together.
There you go. I just had lunch with Griff.
Yes. I hope he paid.
And I'm trying to smile anyway.
Did he pay? That's what I thought.
Have
Tony,
a great day, guys.
Behave. Talk to you soon.
See you, Tony.
Okay, after the break, we'll get a little bit of Watson's analysis of where Tennessee is as a program. Watson, let's talk for a second about Jody Jones Dentistry, because while I have the particulars of that beautiful new showroom, you have a lot of the background, and it's really pretty special.
Oh, Jody's special to me. He was one of our former players at Vanderbilt, a good player. George, a linebacker, was very young when I had him and was on special teams and just one of our better players at that. And that's Jody. He's a very competitive young man. Everything he does, he goes after. And I think when you see this facility that he has, he went after it. He's built an unbelievable practice. His mom and daddy are they're like brother and sister to me, and Doug and Lucy Jones. Dwayne, his brother, is also a dentist, very successful, was my cord holder. No wonder he was skinny as a rail back when he did that. This is a fantastic family. He's a victim of a great environment, and I couldn't be any prouder of Jody. And I can just say to you and let you finish it.
Yeah.
You need a good dentist coming into town, a new dentist being here in town. This is the guy. He is fantastic, and he will treat you first class.
This state-of-the-art facility is 55 Music Square East. If you want to make an appointment, dial them up, 615-259-5100. We'll have Watson's Tennessee analysis in 30 seconds, so you stick around. I know it's getting colder. You're not thinking about golf. However, if you're planning an event for next year, let me suggest golf through Riverside Golf Links. The course has improved dramatically. It's perfect for hosting a corporate or a charitable outing. They've got everything in place to make your event a rousing success. To get more info, call 615-847-5074 or go online to riversidegolflinks.com. So, Watson, let's talk a little Tennessee football. They're coming off an even bigger win in the Orange Bowl over Clemson than any of us dreamed. I don't think any of us thought they'd win by 17. What does this do for momentum, 9-10 months from now?
Oh, I don't see how it could have worked better for him, George. Like I said to Tony, gives the confidence an unbelievable – the defense an unbelievable confident feeling going into the offseason that just 2 games prior to that, I mean, they were rock bottom. It was an embarrassing game. They just got beat in all ways on the defensive side of the ball. And to play that well on defense and to give the confidence back to Coach Banks, their defensive coordinator, that couldn't be better. Getting Joe Milton to step up and be the guy, that couldn't be better. I still think he's got to go earn it against a freshman, but that's much better than the alternative could have been, because we went into that 50-50. George, how he would play. I think they got to go fix the defense, bring in quite a few transfer portal guys, some good freshmen, go get another couple of wide receivers. I'm not real sure about offensive line, how many of those guys are back. I think a lot of them are. They've got 2 fantastic running backs. This team is not far from taking another step, in my opinion. But I think what he brings in, what Coach Heupel brings in, and I mean this spring, what he brings in immediately before the fall is going to be big to see if they can take the next step. And the next step is find a way to win the East. And that's not going to be easy to do at all, is to win the East. But that's the next step. They're there. Georgia's the one that kept them from winning this year, along with South Carolina. But that's the next step for Tennessee, and I don't think anybody will be pleased till they can finally take that step.
Watson, you mentioned James Banks, the defensive coordinator at Tennessee, who has done a phenomenal job. I mean, so many of these matchups, you look at what the defense and Banks has done to quarterbacks to sort of rattle them. When you have a freshman quarterback as your opponent, I know you're more of an offensive guy, but defensively, we all know you can't just send the house every time. How do you strategize? Okay, we're going to send this guy. We're going to drop this guy back, make sure we have a spy. How do you sort of strategically blitz a freshman quarterback if you're a defensive coordinator?
Well, the first thing you try to do against inexperience is disguise well. You do not want a freshman, an inexperienced quarterback, to know before the ball snap what he's getting. That turns him into a much more experienced guy. So you're going to disguise your looks and bring people from different places, and don't bring them all the time. You've got to mix it because some of your better plays is when you don't bring it and he's thinking the pressure's coming to me, Billy, and then he throws into a crowd and gets one picked off or throws it too quick or whatever. So I think the way you attack a freshman is what I saw with Tennessee, that they kind of did those things. They picked and chose their pressure times. They pressured more than not in the game, and it was a major effect on the quarterback. He was nervous, and I think when you get confused, it makes you more nervous. It makes you less confident, and which means if you have less confidence, you have less poise. So I thought Tennessee – I text Tony after the game. I said, Tennessee just won this game. Everybody's talking about Milton. They won the game on defense. What they did to Clemson offensively – just really frustrated them all night long.
And they sure didn't get hurt by missed field goals as well, which is a real surprise because Potter has been throughout his career a terrific kicker at Clemson.
Yeah, and George, I've always believed this. If you can do it, don't make your kicker's first kick a 53-yarder. You miss one, then you miss a 48-yarder, and now it's starting to get in your head. It's like the other night with Ohio State. They set up a field goal, a 50-yard field goal. They set it up as that. The last 3 plays, they didn't really try to do anything.
They were going to.
He hadn't kicked a 50-yarder all year long. That was his longest kick of the season. With that kind of, and he's a really good kicker, but with that kind of pressure on you, and you have not hit a 50-yarder, you hadn't kicked a 50-yarder, missed or hit a 50-yarder all year long, and you make that for the national championship. Sometimes you got to help these kickers, in my personal opinion, and understand their psyche a little bit. That is a pressure position. Punter's not near as tough as kicker. A kicker gets caught in pressure situations, and man, the good ones can handle it and the bad ones can't. But help your guy a little bit as a coach if you can. Sometimes you can't, but if you can, help him a little bit as a coach. I thought it really got the kicker off when he had to kick long for Clemson, when he had to kick 2 really long field goals to start the game. I'm not sure I wouldn't have punted on the first one. It was a 53 or 54-yard field goal. That's a long field goal to start a big bowl game like that.
So go back on Milton. Was he that nervous against Vandy that all of these balls that looked so good against Clemson were nowhere close, or did they go back to a drawing board coaching-wise after the game here? Give me some thoughts there.
Oh, absolutely coaching. He was different looking throwing the deep ball. This wasn't nerves at Vanderbilt. This was fundamentals that I saw in him all year long. And they fixed those things. He didn't look like the same guy. If you'd have taken the number off the jersey and the T off the helmet or whatever and showed me a film of this guy and then showed me a film of him in the Vanderbilt game, I would have said, no, that's not the same kid. You've given me 2 different people here to analyze. This was not nerves, nothing. They fixed him. And his fundamentals were so much better. And I thought they would. They're smart guys, and they got him for 3 weeks, and they said, okay, we're going to get back. And you say, well, why aren't you doing that all year? Because you get hung up in winning a game, and he's the backup. And you're working with him, but you're not really into what he needs and all the stuff. And man, when they finished that Tennessee game, they said, before he plays again, we're going to have him better at this because he's still missing too many of these deep throws. And he missed 1 in the game is all, and it was a scramble. The rest of them, he hit every one of them.
Billy, let's go to the graphic on Tennessee's non-conference opponents a year from now. 4 home games, 3 of them at Neyland Stadium, 1 of them here at Nissan against Virginia. Watson, it is, your scheduling model to a T. Pun intended.
Yes, it is my scheduling model, and Tennessee probably doesn't need it as much, but this is a very solid schedule. UConn's better, but they're still not Tennessee. UTSA won the Conference USA, but they didn't win the Southeastern Conference. And then Virginia is their toughest opponent. Austin Peay will give them a chance to play a lot of people. My gosh, are these 1, 2, 3, 4, or are they mixed in throughout the year? Do you know that?
September 2nd, 9th, 23rd, November 4th.
Yeah, so there's a little bit. The first 2 are back to back. Then there's one game, I guess, in between, unless that's an open date.
Called Florida,
and then this, and then they play in November late UConn. This is a great schedule for Tennessee. And this will give them time to get some young players because they'll have some young players playing. This will have to give them time to get ready for Florida with these 2 first games. Virginia will not – well, even though it's in Nashville, it's still Big Orange through and through. And Virginia will not be a major factor. They won't be as competitive with them as Pittsburgh was last year. They will not be.
Tennessee's going to win all these games, but UTSA – was really good this year, and UConn made a bowl game for the first time in forever. So all of a sudden, those games, they'll win, but they may not be sort of the cupcakes that a lot of people may think on the surface, because Jim Mora, especially late in the year, Jim Mora did a great job there.
He got them better until the bowl game.
Now, Austin Peay, different story.
Yeah, but they're better than these teams, Billy.
The
whole deal is – give me some teams that I'm better than mixed in with all these SEC opponents. If I wouldn't preach this schedule like I preach it for Vanderbilt over and over, and it worked for Vanderbilt last year, guys. They won 3 of the 4. And if they hadn't had a schedule like that, they would have won 1 or 2 games all year long. That gave them a chance late to be playing Tennessee to go to a bowl. And the only one they lost was Wake Forest at home, who was a very good team. And I think Vanderbilt's schedule is very similar to this again next year. So I think this is smart. Tennessee will win these games. Yeah, they might be competitive. It might be 28-14 or 42-28 or something like that, but they still win, and they still get to play a lot of people. And so Tennessee's off to a good start with this schedule.
Watson, after the break, we'll have our first stat of the day for 2023. New year, probably the same results. And then
we've been pretty good lately.
Yeah, we have.
We've been pretty good lately.
We have. I have a higher standard.
Oh, I have no standards at all. So.
It's good to know.
I have 0.
And then when we come back to get into the 3 o'clock hour, we'll get knee deep into Watson Brown's memories of a day in Oxford, Mississippi, very similar to what went on last night in Cincinnati. Stay tuned. We're coming back.
Hey, thank you for meeting with me today. The insurance company has made an offer.
Already? Wow.
They've offered you the entire policy.
Thank you, Blair.
You're so welcome.
Welcome to John English Antique Sports and Cards, located at 204 East Depot Street in beautiful downtown Shelbyville, Tennessee. Their phone number is area code 931-492-4304. John, obviously, I've been blown away by what I've seen at your place. I've now been there 3 times. But for the person who's never been, what should they expect?
Well, we have a 3,000 square foot store, George. Half of it is vintage cards in all sports. And then half of the store is, a lot of people call it the museum, where there's a lot of early equipment and just the history of sports in general: baseball, football, basketball, golf, tennis, and other items.
When somebody comes in there that you know is a big sports fan, what is their normal reaction?
Well, I think that they're pleasantly surprised. And, of course, being in Shelbyville, Tennessee, which is a small town that you would never expect a shop like we have to be in. So they're kind of, I don't want to say blown away, but as I said, pleasantly surprised.
Well, before we go stat of the day and either go 1-0 for the year or 0 for 1, just a quick word about my buddy James Warren and the folks at Sir Speedy of Berry Hill. Yeah, they are the official sign provider of the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night, and I'm very proud of that because they have put some of the biggest banners together that you have ever seen. Here's the truth. They do great work no matter what it is or who it is. It doesn't have to be just me in a charity event. They can do great things for you as well. Go by and see James Warren and get ready because Stat of the Day is next.
Yes, it is, George, and it's brought to us, as you just saw, the commercial, John English Antique Sports and Cards down in Shelbyville, Tennessee. You can give them a call at 931-492-4304. They're located 204 East Depot Street, Tuesday through Friday, noon to 5. Of course, in Shelbyville, also Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 5. So stop on in to John English Antique Sports and Cards. You will be pleasantly surprised. Okay, let's get to Stat of the Day, brought to you by John English. And first one of 2023, so we got to get off to a hot start here. If the NFL playoffs started today, how many former first-round quarterbacks would start from the AFC and the NFC?
Okay, we're just going to run them down. You keep quiet because we want to get some credit. We want to get off to a good start. Watson, You ready?
Watson, are you muted? Oh, we lost
wow.
Watson.
We lost him. Well, that's a tragedy. Okay, hold on. I will
brainstorm a little bit here, George.
I will persevere. Josh Allen was absolutely a first-round draft pick.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take a flyer on Mahomes, who I think was, but I can't swear to it. The 3 seed Joe Burrow was absolutely a first round. In fact, he was the first overall pick, period. The 4 seed today would be Jacksonville, and that's Trevor Lawrence, and he was the first pick in the draft one of those years.
Okay, so hold on, George. So far, who do you have?
I've got Allen so far. I've got Joe Burrow. I've got Trevor Lawrence. I've got Justin Herbert with the Chargers. Let's see. The 6 seed would be Baltimore. Lamar Jackson was not, I don't think. And the 7 seed today would be whom? Watson, are you back?
I think so.
Okay. Who would be the 7 seed in the first of all, was Mahomes a first round draft pick?
I think so.
Okay. So let's go Allen, Mahomes, Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert. Was Lamar Jackson first round?
Yes.
Okay. That's 6. Who is the 7 seed right now in the AFC? It'd be New England.
I don't know that we know it, do we?
No, but if the season ended today, it would be New England, and that would be the kid from Alabama, Mac Jones.
And he was a first rounder, I think.
Okay.
Maybe late first rounder.
Okay, so in the AFC, we're going 7 out of 7.
And I'll go ahead. I'll go ahead and say it. That's right for the AFC.
Well, that's beautiful.
So
we're kicking
so
butt.
that is correct.
Okay. Now let's go to the NFC. The 1 seed is Jalen Hurts. He wasn't a first round draft pick, was he, Watson?
I think late first rounder. You may be right. He's either in the 20s or he was his early second rounder.
I don't think he was first round.
He
Okay.
probably wasn't.
Kirk Cousins was not.
No.
Was not first round. The 3 seed is
Dak Prescott wasn't a first rounder.
No, wait a minute. 3 seed San Fran, and Purdy absolutely was not.
He wasn't even drafted.
He was the last pick of the draft.
He was the last pick of the draft.
Tom Brady was a 6th round pick.
Yep.
I think I see that this may end up like 7-0 is where this looks like it's headed. Okay, the 5 seeds Dallas. Dak Prescott was not. The Giants with
he was
a first rounder.
Yeah.
And the 7 seed, oh gosh, the 7 seed is right now.
Wasn't it Green Bay or Detroit?
Who are we saying is the 7 seed?
So right now, it's
Seattle.
It's Seattle right now.
And Geno Watson, wasn't he a first round pick?
He was a first rounder, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, it's either 2 or 3 in the NFC.
Okay, really good job. And I'm going to go ahead and give you the clap because you got all 7 in the AFC. One of them in the NFC, Daniel Jones. Geno Smith was not a first round pick.
He was not. Wow.
But that was a pretty damn good
About
job.
a 90% accuracy rating. Okay.
But you said all of them correctly. It's not like Geno Smith would cost you a wrong answer there. So
no, we take that one.
We hung tough.
We take that one and go to the house.
That's a great start to 2023.
So we want to get into the story that everybody is talking about, and that is Damar Hamlin, the Buffalo Bills defensive back, who right now is in critical condition at a hospital in Cincinnati. And Lord knows he and that family need our thoughts and prayers. It's the scariest scene that I think I have ever seen in sports. But Watson, it may be no better than a tie in your life, because a lot of people forget you were the head coach at Vanderbilt the day of the Chucky Mullins accident. And one thing that hit me last night as I was watching this is, if the NFL had truly made those players go back out there, they were going to catch hell just like they did the weekend that they went ahead and played games after the JFK assassination. There was going to be an outcry that was huge. And yet, in the deal that happened between Vandy and Ole Miss involving Chucky Mullins, you all played 30 minutes later.
Maybe in a little longer than that, but yes. I'll defend it. I do think it's different now than it was back in the 80s, but at the same time, we all didn't know the extent of Chucky Mullins. Whereas last night, this young man basically died on the field. His heart stopped beating. And we didn't know the extent of Chucky's injuries till later. And really later that afternoon, after we're on the bus and we get back to Nashville, we were in Oxford. But I knew he was hurt real bad. I mean, I can vividly go through the play. I'll start it with this, George. When that hit last night, my mind immediately went right back to Oxford, Mississippi in the 80s, in the late 80s. I text Brad Gaines, who was the player that got hit on the Chucky Mullins play. We're running a vertical route, and John Gromos is the quarterback, best I can remember, and the ball was thrown slightly inside, and Brad had to turn to catch the ball. And so he's twisted and gets hit right in the small of the back, and he's probably off the ground, I don't know, 2 feet, whatever, and up in midair. And Chucky hits him with the top of his helmet, and George, he went straight, just like the kid last night. Last night became, most things that you think back about that's happened, as you can in your career, most things I think back, well, that was 30 years ago. That was 40 years ago. When that hit last night, it was yesterday. I was there again yesterday. Yeah. And it's an unbelievable feeling to be on the field with it. It still affects me today. It don't affect me anything like it does Brad. And we're talking Brad Gaines, if I didn't say the full name earlier. When they said on the TV last night that T. Higgins, who was the ball carrier that got tackled, was very distraught and just really, really upset, I said, yeah, because that's what it did to Brad. It changed Brad's life for the rest of his life, George, and as it will T. Higgins. And Brad, we all know the story. He goes back on 3 times a year to see Chucky at the gravesite, was there all the way through for him. But it really affected Brad. I have said many times, I texted him last night and said, I'm so proud of you for what you did with that. I'm so proud of you still today and praying for you. That's how strong that was. And that was exactly what we all saw last night. Honestly, George, it was a different injury, but the same kind of outcome. Chucky passed away a few years later, but it's devastating. It's not sport. It's life-changing. I can promise you this, you and Billy and ever millions that watch that, it's in their minds for the rest of their lives.
We will never forget where we were.
You'll never forget where you were. You'll be able to go straight back to it when you see something like this again. And it never leaves you. And I just hope and pray. I know you got questions for me, but I just hope and pray he comes out of it and can live a normal life. And I can't tell you how many prayers I've said in the last 12 hours.
Yeah.
I talked to Brad again this morning about it, and it changed my life in ways. It drastically changed Brad Gaines' life for the rest of his life. And he's handled it, George, top of the line, first class. Everybody says, well, he didn't, I guess he had to do this, or Brad didn't have to do anything. That's Brad Gaines. Brad well also.
Oh, sure.
That's the kind of person he is. That's just Brad. That's all I can say. What happened and how Brad reacted is Brad Gaines. And I can't be prouder of him. There were players that went to the hospital last night. I saw where the receiver went. The head coach of the Bengals went. It changes you, man. It changes you for the rest of your life. And anybody that watched it, I struggled sleeping all night last night. I'm sorry. I struggled sleeping all night last night.
Watson, one of the things that has changed, I knew and was with some friends last night, and we all agreed they're not going to play. Once they went to the locker room, that was it, even though they hadn't made an announcement. Chucky Mullen's deal was incredibly serious. You knew it when you saw it. And yet 30 years plus ago, there was never any consideration to taking those teams off the field and stopping football. And that, to me, there's a sensitivity level now that's better than it used to be.
Yes. I defend it because I had nothing to do with the decision either way. I was told we're going to play or we're not going to play. I wasn't asked. Billy Brewer and I are talking, but all we were concerned about was Chucky. Honestly, I don't think either one of us cared if we kept playing or not, to tell you the truth. And, but I don't remember it even coming up. Like I said, we didn't find out the true extent of it till about 24 hours later. But the awareness now of these type injuries, because last night a lot of people thought it was head. I didn't. I did not think it was head. I've seen the head ones. I know how the kids react. You don't get up off the ground with a head injury like that. You
Right.
don't stand up and redo your helmet a little bit, and you don't do that. And I knew it was something else. But praise the Lord, they do look at it different in today's world, George. That's the way I would say it. I saw where they said the NFL said take 5 minutes, and the NFL has totally denied that. They said that never happened. We never said that. We hadn't made any decision at any point like that at that point. And so I was glad to hear that, because the announcers were saying there, well, the NFL has said, let's get over here and warm up and take 5 minutes and we'll play. And the NFL totally denied that. Even later last night, because I stayed up and watched all the shows about it to try to see if he'd gotten better, worse, whatever. I probably didn't even go to bed till 2:00. And so I'm glad that they are taking this kind of stuff more serious. One thing I heard in that, George, to me, that the NFL has a trauma center in every town.
Yes.
With people that come to work during the ball game just in case something does happen. And the NFL sets it up that way. That made me feel so much better to hear that there's people in place waiting for something to happen and ready to react when it does.
And apparently, Watson, there's a communications line where the officials, the football game officials, can talk to those people. Well, I never knew that. And I'll bet 98% of you watching this never knew that. That's terrific.
I didn't know it, and I'm a coach, and I didn't know that.
Right.
And I've had many players in the NFL. I did not know that. That's fantastic. Honestly, they may have saved the young man's life last night. If they hadn't reacted the way they had, George, they may not have brought him back. We didn't know when he left the field if he even had a heartbeat or not. See, that was never said till later on. They never said that. But he did leave with his heart was beating again before he left the field. And whoever worked on him on that field,
God bless
may
him.
have did save his life, and hopefully they got to him quick enough that he doesn't have other kind of damaged stuff. Now, last night late, they were talking about they put him in the coma because it cools him down and it's better for him. But while he's in that coma, they can also run tests on him. So they had a lot of tests done last night, even within an hour probably after he was in the hospital.
Yeah, I know this isn't really important at all, but I thought the coverage last night was super professional. Starting with the studio people, the guys in the booth, and then Scott Van Pelt and Ryan Clark. It was sort of comforting to watch that and hear from a guy like Ryan Clark, who, I mean, Scott Van Pelt probably felt like me and George right now with you, Watson, with so much football experience. Clark was just laying his heart out. And so was Scott Van Pelt, and sports fans and people in general, I feel like, needed that last night. And, that's not taught in journalism class, there's something like that.
I went later on after ESPN, after that was over. I saw some CNN, I saw Fox, I saw,
it was everywhere.
I went everywhere I could go to find out anything I could find out. Everybody, Billy, that I listened to last night, first class.
Mm-hmm.
I give the media a lot of credit last night.
Real sensitivity level.
But it was everybody. Everybody was first class last night. I think it affected everybody that way, guys.
Oh, it did.
I think it got everybody that way. And it's just like I said, there are certain times in our life that you never forget, and you can say where you were when they happened. 9/11, John F. Kennedy's death. Billy wasn't around then, but George and I are close to enough the same age. I promise you, we both could say today where we were on all of these type things that happened.
Yeah.
Well, put this one right there with it, because you're going to remember it forever.
There was a lot of, if you're the praying type, send up a prayer. I think this really, hit home with a lot of people in the religious realm. I mean,
absolutely.
It just sort of united everyone, I feel like. So as awful as it was, it gets deep pretty quick.
One note that really may not be of any importance, but it's the kind of stupid stuff that I pay attention to, having been in the media. ESPN showed a couple of times very early the fact that Hamlin, gets up and then staggers, and you're thinking he's got a concussion, because the early look at that play and his reaction has sort of that Tua thing earlier in the season. Well, there is no question that the order came from down high at some point, or up high, to never show that replay again. And if you think about it, for all the stuff that we have all watched late last night and today, I give ESPN credit. They haven't run that thing one time. They have not shown that. There's been a good sensitivity level that is not something that needs to get shown again. And I applaud them for that.
You start to think about,
agree.
you start to think about respect for the family and, and that sort of thing. Sorry, Watson.
Well, 100% agree with you, George. What I think really happened, when they found out how serious, when they first ran it, they didn't know how serious it was. And when they found out how serious it was, they stopped that on the spot. And I have not seen it since, by the way. I have not seen it since.
And my guess is you will never see that one again.
I hope not.
We'll go to the break, and then we'll talk more about one of these events that suddenly takes the toy department of life out of sports, and it gets serious as all get out. We'll be back in 1 minute.
How am I going to get to work? My car's totaled.
Scholar, our team is making a call right now. We'll get you a rental car. Don't worry.
That's a relief.
Call us 24/7. We're here. We're going to help.
Year number 2 of the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night was awesome. And the reason is simple. I chose Hermitage Strike and Spare. They were amazing. Great food, great bowling, and a staff that's ready to go the extra mile. They have 5 family fun centers in the area to choose from. And for more info, go to strikeandspare.com or call them at 615-824-5665. We're back, and we're talking about what went on last night in Cincinnati involving this young man who, in all honesty, most of us had never heard of, but now is a household name, Damar Hamlin, the defensive back of the Buffalo Bills. So, Watson, this is, when I think of the NFL, cutthroat, win at all cost, money first, and to hell with everything else second. And yet last night, I saw some stuff between the Bengals and Buffalo that I was really proud of. Right at the top of it being Coach Taylor with Cincinnati, Sean McDermott with Buffalo. That was pretty heartwarming.
Well, and the players, yes, all of it. And that was immediate. When they knew there were real issues, the first piece that I remember them really showing, was the two quarterbacks hugging with tears in their eyes. And especially Josh Allen had tears in his eyes. And man, they're playing for the number one seed. I mean, they're fighting for what everybody fights for all year long to get to this point. And all of a sudden, it didn't mean nothing. It didn't mean nothing. You could see it in all their eyes. They didn't care. They did not care at all from that point on. We look at them as gladiators, George. They're gladiators. I mean, it's the old time, put the gladiator out there and with the lines, or let two gladiators fight it out and one dies and one don't. But we kind of treat them that way, and they're human beings. And I think it's kind of neat, and I don't mean it in respect of what happened last night, but I just think anytime that we can see these kids are human beings, and yeah, they're making big bucks. But I'm telling you, I've said it for years. I'll back it, not because I played all three sports, played two of them in college. And football, more than any sport, those kids deserve every penny they get, pal, because the game is so daggum physical, and they could be gone in one night, just like last night. But every time that we can see these kids are humans, and not, again, just read about the bad guys or talk about the bad guys, with all the good guys out there. Here's a young man, he don't have any money. He's not making much money. He was a low-round draft pick. He's his second year, maybe, I think, third at the most, but he doesn't have very much money. He has a fundraiser, as you did, George. Same kind of deal, trying to find ways to raise money for kids. I mean, these guys are the football players on the field, and we want to fuss at them when they don't make a play and make them much bigger than they are when they do make a play. But they are still human beings. And personally, because I coach that age, they're still kids in a lot of ways. They're men, but they still have a lot of kid in them because they kind of play a kid's game. And yes, I thought that was really neat last night to watch the reactions of all the different players on both sides of the field.
Do you believe that the two coaches told the league, we don't give a damn what your ruling is, we're not going back out there?
I think they said it in a much more professional, personal way, but the outcome of what you just said, absolutely. I think they said, look, I'm in this locker room with my guys. Zach's in the locker room with his guys. There ain't no way that it would be good to put these kids back out on this field. No way in the world would that be good. I don't know if it got to that. I don't know if the NFL asked them that. I can't imagine even asking the question, because I didn't think there was but one answer. And yes, I was a part of one that did go back and play. And probably as devastating of a outcome and injury as this one could be or could have been. I was in one of those, and we did go back and play. But I knew last night, as you said, I mean, as soon as you knew it was serious as over, I knew they weren't playing anymore last night.
Okay, let me try it this way, Watson. You all did play, as you've brought up, and in the end, Chucky Mullins, in a pitiful story, passed away a couple of years later. Do you remember at all what you said to your team, when it became obvious, okay, after what was, you're right, a 30, 45-minute delay, and now all of a sudden you're going to get back out there. Do you remember what you said to your team, and what do you think those guys would have said to their teams if they'd been ordered back out there?
I can't vividly remember, but I know that I had to talk to the team the rest of the year. It was late in the year. We might have had 2 more games after that or something. I knew we went to Virginia Tech the next week, and I had to spend a lot that week talking about what happened and what we got to do to try to go play and get our heads up, and we got to represent each other and represent our university. And I'm sure I said all the cliche things, but George, I was hurting with them. I mean, you're saying the coach having to do it. I promise you, those coaches were hurting. I promise you, Sean McDermott was not in a good condition himself, and to have to go when he had to go do that. I don't remember exactly what I said. I'm sure, as I said, it would have been cliche. I do remember worrying about Brad. Brad wasn't right. We finished the game. Brad wasn't right the rest of the year. He just it really gotten to him, and Brad was a great player. Brad was way up in the country in number of receptions that year. He was a really good football. He was our best offensive football player, and I just remember so one time, there's been a couple of more, but I will say this, guys, it's probably one of those few times where I didn't know what to say. I struggled with Brad on how to help him. I wasn't a professional that way. So I struggled with how do I handle this with him and try to get him to come out of it and to help him through it. And so I don't mean to get too personal, because we need to talk. It's more about what happened last night, but it leads to last night. Thank goodness those coaches didn't have to do it. I promise you, when I did it, I didn't do it very good.
Yeah.
There's no game plan. Herm Edwards,
believe me.
Herm Edwards was on TV talking about it today.
There's no playbook.
There's no playbook, and I've heard that before, but with this, I mean, this is another level.
This is truly no playbook. So Watson, if they'd gone out there, if they had played, what was it going to look like?
Not good. But you know what? I'm not sure anybody would have been looking at it anyway that way. I know what would have been on my mind if they'd kept playing.
Right.
I'm not sure I would have watched it, to be very honest. I'm not sure I could sit there and watch it. I'd probably had to walk and go in another room, or I'm telling you, it affected me last night big time. And so it worked out for the best. Every time something like this happens, George, we all get better the next time we have to deal with it. And that's what I would say from that last night. The coaches, the players, next time they're in it, they'll have a little more experience on how to deal with it. The NFL will have a little more experience on how to deal with it. Thank goodness they had some stuff in place, as we talked about earlier in the show, that they could deal with it in a professional way, in a medical way. And we can talk all we want, but that may be the piece that is the biggest piece of all this, if this young man makes it. And I just got to think and pray that he's going to.
Oh, absolutely. Watson, I give the highest marks to the two head coaches, because it was obvious. First of all, that game to start out with has a ton of meaning going in, and looks on paper like one of the 5 best NFL games of the year. It's got so much on the line, 1 seed, all that kind of stuff.
And both are playing fantastic. Both quarterbacks are playing lights out.
Yeah.
I mean, they both took their team down the field and scored. It's going to be one unbelievable football game.
It's a 34-31 written all over it.
And whoever had the ball last probably is going to win the game.
But I think for me, it was so impressive to see those two coaches, because you could see Zach Taylor, when he approached McDermott, you could see sort of, I could care less about this game. I'm worried about your team. I'm worried about your players, because Watson, let's be honest, we saw some shots, some pictures that Monday Night Football provided of these big old, 300-pound, huge people, brought to their knees in tears.
Yeah, we did. I mean, and I'll say something you all may disagree with. I honestly hope they don't replay the game. I wish there's a way this could be settled without those two teams playing each other again, putting them in that same situation, starting that clock at exactly where it stopped before. I just hope that doesn't happen. I don't care to watch it. I really don't care to watch that game. That's me. Maybe I'm a little more emotional than a lot of people with that, but I just don't. I hope and pray they don't play the game again. If they play in the playoffs, okay, that's different to me than going back to Cincinnati in the same stadium with the clock starting at the same exact time that he went down and all that. I just don't care to see it.
Yeah.
I really hate asking this right now, but for the Bills and Watson, I know you were a part of this with what happened with Chucky, but I mean, how do they get their mind right to be able to play again? I mean, I saw some stuff last night on social media about, is this their season? I mean, how do they go about, playing another game? That's what I think of.
Well, I know I didn't get mine very good. I can honestly say that. My team was never the same the rest of that year. And isn't it ironic that the starter in front of this young man, Micah Hyde, is already gone for the season with a serious neck injury. And now the backup is gone too. So that's kind of weird that it would go down that way. Two very, very, very serious injuries back to back in the same position.
Watson, the beginning of this conversation got an incredible amount of people watching it, more than we've ever had, to my knowledge, in one listen to. This is an issue that it's gotten everybody's attention, and it should. Thank you for sharing what obviously 30 plus years ago, it's something you'll never forget. I wasn't even there, and I'll never forget it. But I'm glad that we at least have reached a sensitivity level where there really was very little thought given amongst us, the general public, of that game continuing. Nobody wanted it to continue, and kudos that that's the way it is now.
Well, and maybe, just maybe, even more good comes from this, George, that we're all going to just on our knees praying constantly that he gets well and comes back and can live a normal life. But maybe a lot of good comes from this also, that when this happens again, all the fans now know how to react, how to handle it, how to handle their children. Think about the young kids that are in that stadium.
Oh, gosh.
That's traumatizing now to a 10-year-old that is a big Bills fan or whatever, and see that happen. That's there for the rest of your life. Maybe we all learn from it, and we will do better and the more that the NFL and college football and high school football can make stuff like this aware and can find more ways to keep it from happening, make it happen less and less, then let's work that, because we all love this sport. But if we don't keep these bodies, guys, get so much bigger, stronger, and faster. Brenda and I were talking last night at 11 o'clock, my wife, about when I played I had an offensive lineman and a defensive lineman playing the NFL for 20 years apiece, and both of them weighed 260.
Yeah.
Bob Asher weighed 260 pounds, and he played for the Chicago Bears for a long time. Pat Toomey probably weighed 245 and played in Super Bowl, played with the Raiders for a long, long time. And these bodies are so much bigger, stronger, and faster now, guys. And I was 6'2", 188, and I was considered a good-sized quarterback. in today's world, I'm a small quarterback. The world, this game has changed. And the more we just keep making it aware of things to make it better, then I'm 100% for it.
Our buddy Brian Stewart joins us from One Stop Realty. Let's pull him up there. Brian, Happy New Year to you and yours.
Happy New Year, George, Watson, Billy. Hope you guys had a great end of the year and ready to start a great new year. I want to definitely give a shout out for the what everybody knows what's going on. I mean, it was actually just traumatizing last night just watching that happen. When he went down, I think everybody just kind of, like y'all said, just kind of stopped, and it was like, I don't think anybody was thinking about football at all. And I think the announcers did a pretty good job of, keeping everybody informed, and I think everybody was just praying for Damar and, praying for his family. I hate it that his family had to see that, but I'm glad that they were there to be with him and go to the hospital and all that. But definitely praying for him, praying for everybody that ever straps on a helmet or any kind of sport where you're out there in full contact like that. It's one of those things with a game that you just can't avoid sometimes.
Yeah. By the way, your Alabama guys showed some real professionalism over the weekend in taking care of business. That was impressive.
Well, I wanted to. I wasn't even gonna really hit on too much football, but I will say this: there's two teams that I'm really proud of. Number one is, of course, Alabama. I'm always proud of them guys. Number two, I have to say I'm proud of Tennessee, man. I mean, the Vols come out and they really showed something to go out there and beat Clemson like they did. Milton, I saw that kid on that video throw that orange across the stadium. That's just incredible. So I'm excited about what college football is going to be next year. Alabama's got the number one recruiting class. Tennessee's getting stronger. I think the SEC is just getting better every year, it seems like. And all we have to do now, George, is we have to pray and hope that, maybe Tennessee can go out, the Titans can go out this weekend and take care of business in Jacksonville.
And, who knows? I wouldn't have given it a nickel's chance a week ago. I still don't believe they're going to win. They've got a puncher's chance if Dobbs plays halfway decent.
Yeah, I definitely think, and I know y'all probably agree here, that I think Willis has some talent, but I just don't think that he has I just don't think he's ready yet. And Dobbs, you could see it was a night and day difference. When I was at the stadium the other day, I mean, everybody in the crowd was just saying, how much better it looks with him running the offense. I mean, even in the first play where he did the play action and rolled out to the right and hit a receiver for the first down. I mean, we just hadn't seen that from Willis. It looks like he's just kind of indecisive, whatever. So I do like our chances better with Dobbs, but let's be honest, man, Jacksonville is red hot. They're, even with Lawrence not playing very well this past weekend, they still got the job done. So there's no question about it. The Titans have made their bed. They're sleeping in it right now. They got to take care of Jaguars at home. So, we'll hope and pray that the right team shows up Sunday.
Brian, you were good to do this. It's good to talk to you. Tomorrow, let's get into your business.
Oh, you want to talk real estate tomorrow?
Yeah,
okay.
Why not? Novel concept, huh?
Hey, George, I'm proud of you guys. I'm excited to still be with the show and everything. I'm excited for all of you. New Year is going to be great. And once again, just praying again for Damar Hamlin and his family. You guys have a great rest of the day, okay?
Brian, you take care. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
See you guys.
Brian Stewart, One Stop Realty. Okay, Watson, I don't know that the weekend was all that great for the plaster bet of the day. I'll let Billy take it over. I can see that smirk on his face that I'm not sure I really appreciate.
Well, George, we'll get to it. But of course, bet of the day, the first one of 2023 is brought to you by Bart Durham Injury Law. They are lawyers you can trust. Give them a call at 615-242-9000. That's 615-242-9000, or log on to their website. That's bartdurham.com.
I don't think, though, that we suddenly wipe the slate clean. I think we keep the record the way it is.
Well, that's exactly what our graphics guy, Michael, that's what he's known as right now, Michael Cindric has put. All he said was 2022, 500, 95, and 95.
We got to get better.
So there's room to grow.
I'm going to do something tonight that I don't do very often, and that is take a fairly large favorite. Tennessee is a 9.5-point home favorite against Mississippi State. Now, Mississippi State is not chopped liver, but I'm going with the Vols. I think the momentum of the Orange Bowl will carry over into Thompson Bowling. And Watson, it better, because I need to get over 500.
You don't need to get below 500. Those rats are already rolling around again. So.
Well, and you're one of them. You're waiting.
They're
you're
hungry.
Just waiting for all this. Oh, I'm happy for you, and you're doing so well. You will be the first to come out of there and just go, you suck.
Well, George, thank you very much. That was well said.
Happy New Year.
And pathetically, it was true, wasn't it?
I plead the fifth.
So we got Mississippi. We have Tennessee tonight at home against Mississippi State. Watson, tomorrow on the show, Mark McGee will join us for his weekly visit to talk Nashville Predator hockey. Hopefully after a win tonight against the Canadians at Bridgestone at 7:00. Looks like the weather will have cleared. Let me take a look. Oh, yeah, clearing a little bit. Sunshine in the area.
Sun's out.
Sun's out. Probably not for long. And then, Watson, will have another of our award-winning State of the Unions with you and Terry McCormick from Main Street Media.
Oh, another one.
That?
Another one.
We never have a State of the Union.
I don't think this is the third one. I think so.
Yes, this is big.
Big. It's big.
May not be the last one. What was that, Billy?
Well, I was just going to say, if they win in Jacksonville, is there going to be another State of the Union next week?
Oh, absolutely. It's a playoff State of the Union.
Let's just make it the weekly State of the Union.
Well, as long as the
Here
season
lately
goes,
it has been.
Yeah, as long as the season goes, it might be. Anyway, Watson, thank you as always.
Thank you too, George. Fun to get back and going again.
Do you like our little
fun in
setback
23?
here? We've sort of changed it around a little bit.
Yes, and it looks very nice, by the way.
Okay.
Look,
Because
I like the look. I like the look.
I came very close to putting a Braves thing back here.
Oh, thank goodness. Billy probably at least talked you out of that one.
No, his voice would have carried zero weight.
Well, it's not even baseball season yet, George.
No, give it time.
We're going to see enough of that.
Give it time. Watson, behave.
See you tomorrow, guys.
Billy, you try to behave as well.
I'll try, George.
Oh, look at that. A full view of Nissan Stadium.
I didn't think you liked the full view of yourself, George.
I don't. But there it is. We're out of here. See you tomorrow. Thanks for being with us.